Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
A popular Del Mar beach remained closed today following a shark attack. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It happened on Sunday morning and sent a swimmer to the hospital. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says researchers are trying to find out more about the shark.
It was a rare sight, a sunny day at the beach, and not a swimmer or surfer in the water. The water off 17th Street in Del Mar remained closed to the public today, following a shark attack on Sunday morning. A 46-year-old man was swimming about 100 yards offshore when he was bit by a shark in the torso, left arm, and hand. He was transported to a nearby hospital and is expected to survive. Researchers say the attack is a rare occasion, but sightings of sharks at this beach aren't.
Del Mar has been an aggregation site for almost 5 years now. So this is the time of year female white sharks are coming back to Southern California and they're giving birth to their young. We don't know where. We just know that those babies show up at our beaches. There's no parental care, so they're completely on their own.
Dr. Chris Lowe is a professor of marine biology and the director of the Shark Lab at Long Beach State University. The lab was given funding to study juvenile white sharks off public beaches.
There are thousands of people that are using those beaches from Solana all the way down to Torrey Pines, and we know that there's probably been up to at least 50 juvenile white sharks using those areas at the same time.
Their drone footage shows the sharks swimming alongside swimmers and surfers, minding their own business.
You would expect the probability of bites to be much higher. So while it's unfortunate and we feel really bad for the person who's bitten, it's incredibly rare.
The Shark Lab is now trying to find out what happened and who the actual suspect is.
There's a chance we might be able to match the DNA from the wetsuit with the DNA that we extract from the water. And if so, this would be the first time it's ever been done. So we just don't know if there's enough DNA present for us to do that, but we're pulling a page from human forensic analysis.
The DNA will help determine the shark's age and whether it's just passing through Del Mar or staying around. That will take some time to determine. In the meantime, the beach in Del Mar off 17th Street will remain closed until Tuesday morning. Lifeguards advise to swim in groups near staffed lifeguard towers and be aware of your surroundings. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Thousands of academic workers at UC San Diego are on strike. Today, UAW members joined statewide walkouts against the UC system. KPBS education reporter MG Perez went back on campus for the latest round in the protests for Palestinians.
It's been just less than a month, but for these UC San Diego academic workers, the memories are fresh.
UC violating our union rights isn't acceptable.
I am here today to demand amnesty for protesters and for UC divestment from the Israeli war machine.
What do we want?
Amnesty.
When do we want it?
Now.
In a sign of the times, 8,000 UCSD academic researchers, postdoctoral scholars, and graduate student workers are on strike because of what they call unfair labor practices. They are all members of the UAW, Local 4811, and this morning they joined fellow union members from UC campuses across the state.
Unfair labor practices include things like threatening the health and safety of workers, unilateral changes to university policy, intimidating workers away from participating in this strike.
Last month, scenes like this in the shadow of the Geisel Library happened on many UC campuses, where students created Gaza solidarity encampments that were torn down by police, leading to arrests and student conduct charges, and sometimes violence.
This is a way for the university to try to discipline people outside of their contractual rights. At UC Irvine, workers were suspended. They're not allowed on campus. They're not allowed in their on-campus housing. The university is just trying to suppress protests.
The circles of picket lines continue to grow. UC Santa Barbara union members also went on strike today. UC Irvine is set to join the rolling strike on Wednesday. Here at UCSD, the strike comes during the last week of instruction. Finals start on Saturday, and graduation is June 15th. The timing is an intentional strategy. In a written statement, UC San Diego said in part, our position is that UAW is engaging in an illegal strike in violation of the contract's mutually agreed no-strike clauses because of issues that have no bearing on employment at UC. University of California administration said UAW's goal to maximize chaos and confusion has come to fruition, creating substantial and irreparable impacts on campuses and impacting our students at a crucial time of their education. By the end of the week, 31,000 UC union academic workers across the state are expected to be on strike.
Peaceful protest is our right. We'll give up without a fight.
MG Perez, KPBS News.
This afternoon, the California Public Employment Relations Board denied for the second time the UC's request for an injunction to stop all campus strikes, allowing them to continue.
Well, looking ahead to tonight around San Diego, we're dropping down to a low around 60 degrees. Low clouds near the coast, so heads up if you're going to be out late or even up early. You may run into some lowered visibility and some tricky travel. But it's not the temperatures that we're concerned about here along the coast. It's areas further inland. That's where things are really starting to heat up. We'll tell you how hot things are going to get coming up.
Mexico made history on Sunday by electing a female president for the first time. But KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis says Election Day in San Diego and Tijuana had its share of challenges.
This is how it started. A celebration of Mexican democracy. Hundreds gathered at the Mexican consulate in Little Italy, waiting for their turn to vote. And this is how it ended. Frustration and chanting, "We want to vote, we want to vote," from people who waited 7, 8, even 9 hours on Sunday and still had not cast a ballot.
Llevo esperando 7 horas, no pude votar.
Sara Chamay waited 7 hours and was not able to vote.
There weren't enough ballots there, and people got a little angry because some people stayed 8 hours and they couldn't vote.
That is Rafael Fernandez de Castro, director of the Center for U.S. and Mexico Studies at UC San Diego. Despite the hiccup, Fernandez de Castro says it was a historic day for Mexican democracy. Morena Party candidate Claudia Sheinbaum won by a landslide over Xochitl Gálvez. She will become the first female president in Mexican history.
If you ask me why did Claudia won so big, I will say because there's more money in the pockets of Mexicans.
Sheinbaum is a close ally of current President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and benefited from his policies. López Obrador's administration has doubled the minimum wage, offered cash distributions to poor communities, and created social programs for elderly Mexicans. Now, Fernandez de Castro says Sheinbaum's real work begins.
We need to improve security in Mexico, the crime situation. We need to improve health issues in Mexico. We need to improve the Mexican educational system. So she has a lot of challenges.
In Tijuana, voters lined up to fill out their colorful ballots. Unlike in the U.S., there are more than 2 political parties. Another big difference, people do not get the I voted sticker. Instead, they get semi-permanent ink stamped on their thumb. This is meant to assure that people don't vote more than once.
Las más importantes de la historia.
Salvador Tavares was among the voters in Tijuana. He's wondering how Sheinbaum's election will impact U.S.-Mexico relations.
Es como los vecinos. No nos escogimos, pero aquí estamos. Tenemos que tener buenas relaciones.
Sheinbaum's 6-year term will begin October 1st. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
A group campaigning to replace San Diego Gas and Electric with a municipal utility has officially gathered more than 24,000 signatures. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says that means the City Council will have to vote on whether to put the measure on the November ballot.
The Power San Diego campaign wants to replace SDG&E with a nonprofit municipal electric utility. They say it would lower rates for customers and encourage the use of solar power.
The overarching issue is we have no control over SDG&E's activities, and that is reflected in us paying the highest rates in the nation, in us seeing them achieve the highest record-breaking profit levels ever to their utility through their relentless attacks on rooftop solar and associated battery storage at a local level.
Last month, the campaign turned in about 31,000 signatures to the city clerk's office. They needed 24,006 signatures. That's 3% of the registered voters in the last city election. On Friday, the city clerk said 24,167 signatures were verified. According to the municipal code, that's enough to prompt the city council to vote on whether to put it on the November ballot. In April, the city council's rules committee declined to move the ballot initiative forward.
I have no love for corporate monopolies reaching into the pockets of everyday working people, but this is a very complex and important issue, and I don't think this is baked enough to go to the voters.
A third city-funded study on municipalization is underway. Previous studies estimate the value of the utilities infrastructure at between $1.6 and $4.3 billion. Power San Diego says the purchase of the infrastructure would be paid off by customers. They say if the utility were city-owned, customers would still see a 20% reduction in their electric bills. SDG&E says its infrastructure is worth more, between $7.4 and $9.3 billion. They're also funding a political action committee to oppose the ballot initiative. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
San Diego is one of 3 cities in California chosen for a grant program that aims to reconnect communities divided by freeways. But KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says funding for the program is in jeopardy.
So we are in the heart of Mountain View and in the heart of the Chollas Creek watershed.
I'm walking with Leslie Reynolds along Chollas Creek by the Jackie Robinson Family YMCA. Reynolds is the executive director of Groundwork San Diego. The nonprofit is developing plans to restore native habitat here and build a walking and biking trail across Interstate 805. Eventually, that trail is meant to follow the creek all the way to San Diego Bay.
And so in the Chollas Creek watershed, you find people displaced by the I-5, the I-15, the SR-94, and the I-805. None of these communities had any voice when the freeways were put in.
Half a century after Caltrans built San Diego's freeway network, the surrounding residents have been left with deafening noise pollution, which is linked with higher rates of dementia. They're also at a higher risk of asthma and heart disease from the air pollution.
There are children who cannot get to the YMCA unless they're driven here because there are no safe routes to schools or to churches or to other gathering places and communities. So the devastation has been tremendous on all of these communities divided by these freeways.
This is why the state government created the Reconnecting Communities Grant Program. It's meant to fund projects like pedestrian bridges, freeway lids, even removing or re-engineering freeways to stitch communities back together and help them heal. In March, Caltrans announced San Diego was one of 3 cities chosen for the program. But under the latest budget proposal out of Sacramento, the Reconnecting Communities Grant Program would be cut to $50 million, a third of its original size. San Diego's share of those funds is still unclear.
Always disappointment that the communities of concern end up competing against each other for limited funds, when what really we need to be aspiring to is equitable investments, to create some sort of equality amongst these communities with the resources that are abundant in other communities.
The governor and state lawmakers have until June 15th to adopt a budget that closes an estimated deficit of $27 billion. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A new report today is shining a light on the challenges those in the LGBTQ+ community face when it comes to cancer prevention and treatment. As Mandy Gaither reports, the American Cancer Society says this population is likely at higher risk for cancer.
In what it calls a first-of-its-kind study, the American Cancer Society compiled cancer statistics specifically for those who identify as LGBTQ+.
We don't really have information about morbidity and mortality for the LGBTQ positive population because it's not captured that way. We don't have sexual preferences or sexual identity, captured in any cancer mortality data.
But researchers were able to ascertain cancer risk for this community and found LGBTQ+ individuals are likely at higher risk for cancer due to their fear of being turned away from care and discrimination within the healthcare community. The researchers say 30% of medical students surveyed say they are not comfortable treating transgender patients.
In some states that healthcare providers, based on what's broadly described as religious or personal preferences, can actually refuse to see certain populations, which for us is really a horrifying thought.
Researchers say LGBTQ+ individuals in the U.S. are also more likely to smoke, have excess body weight, and use alcohol heavily, which also adds to their cancer risk.
Our hope is this will really, increase a greater understanding and a real greater ability to, target areas of prevention and screening.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And the American Cancer Society says that this study is just a first step. The organization hopes to continue its research, hoping to further understand the cancer risk in this population. A new program is buying produce from local farmers to feed nutrition-insecure San Diegans. And to understand the impact, KPBS reporter Katie Heisen followed a radish from ground to grocery bag.
On a Tuesday morning in May, Byron in Coma pulls up radishes. I ask him to taste test.
Super crunchy and spicy as well.
He moved from Zimbabwe in 2015 and started Hukama Produce, a 4-acre farm in Ramona.
For me, it's like a dream.
His mission is to feed the community the best food possible.
It is so fresh. Sometimes when it's warm outside, we actually do not even harvest during the day. We harvest at midnight, right? We are out here working at night when it's so cool. The crop is fresh, and alive. And the taste in the end is so different.
Farm sector debt is at a record high. The USDA says 1/4 of U.S. farms carry debt, and it's even harder for small to mid-sized farms like Nkoma's.
It's a battle in the reds. We were barely having our nose above water.
Then in January, the food bank Feeding San Diego partnered with him. Their weekly, nearly $500 order helps stabilize the farm's finances, providing steady income that's hard to get from unpredictable farmers markets. That lets him plan investments. He hopes to hire more labor by shade netting. Nkoma washes radishes as the delivery truck pulls up. They load up, and I follow them to the Feeding San Diego warehouse in Mira Mesa. There, Byron's radishes join boxes from 45 other small to mid-sized farms in the county, many run by women and farmers of color. Produce from small farms costs more for buyers like Feeding San Diego, about $2 per pound instead of 20 cents. The USDA's new local food program aims to even that playing field. It funds local governments to buy from local growers. Leticia Rodriguez sources the produce for Feeding San Diego. She says buying local is better for the environment.
Instead of outsourcing it from another county or another state, we're able to use less fuels, less emissions.
And it avoids hundreds of thousands of dollars in shipping fees. Rodriguez says offering fresh produce, not just canned or boxed food, is vital.
Food is medicine, and a lot of the communities that we serve, they do have more health issues. They're more vulnerable. So this allows them to have access to produce that they normally may not be able to purchase.
And she says recipients prefer the smaller farm produce.
Yeah, so typically in our normal program, we get staples like potatoes, onions, cucumbers. With this program, it's very much farmers market type of produce, like Swiss chard, shiitake mushrooms, bok choy, very culturally preferred produce that we normally would not be able to get, and it's extremely fresh.
Nearly 1,000 people come to their produce distribution every week. I watch them line up the following Saturday. A rainbow fills the long tables, watermelons, peppers, and more, all the way to Nkoma's radishes. Volunteers pass out thousands of pounds of food. I hope to speak with a radish recipient, but I discover most people in line have limited English. Feeding San Diego doesn't track demographics of their produce recipients. Volunteers say there are a lot of immigrants, especially from the Philippines. The Hunger Coalition estimates 1 in 4 people in San Diego County are nutrition insecure, disproportionately people of color. Finally, Nkoma's radishes in her bag, one woman agrees to talk, Ophelia West.
What do you think you'll do with the radishes?
Just make that a salad.
A salad?
I like fresh vegetable and fruits.
I think of Nkoma's dream to feed his community good food. The program is funded through July of next year. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
Well, let's get you started with your weather headlines. We have building heat for inland areas. That's going to be one of our bigger stories. Though there is relief on the way as we are tracking slightly cooler temperatures even as we head into the weekend. Though coastal areas will be spared from the intense heat. Unfortunately, though, we are still tracking hot temperatures, though, for areas further east over these next coming days. Now, for tonight, we're dropping down to 60 San Diego, 68 Borrego Springs. Not too bad, right? You're going to catch some relief from the heat, but that heat builds here as high pressure locks in and it strengthens across the southwest. We have significant warming on the way, and that does include our deserts as we head across Southern California. Highs are going to be running about 5 to 20 degrees above the historical averages. That's hot, especially when you think about where the historical averages are already at for the deserts for this time of year. Records challenged, and well, unfortunately, when you pair that with the winds, the heat, we have an elevated fire risk. Make sure you are doing no outdoor burning. As we head into tomorrow, highs going to be rising back up to the triple digits there in Borrego Springs, but this is just the start of things. Closer towards the coast, comfortable, but look at where our AccuWeather real field temperatures go as we head into Wednesday afternoon. Anywhere across the desert southwest, we're talking AccuWeather real field temperatures triple digit plus, but even when you get to the deserts across southern Nevada, Southern California, we're talking triple digit teens. So please make sure you are taking care of yourself in this heat. I do want to take you day by day. Let's start you off along the coast. Again, you're going to be spared by the intense heat. Now, we are dealing with some low clouds. That's going to be the name of the game here over the next few days. Though as we head further inland, you'll certainly start to feel those temperatures rise. We're in the 80s on Thursday and Friday, though we have mostly cloudy skies. As for the mountains, of course, it's not necessarily going to be too hot there. We're in the 70s there through the middle and late half of the week. But look at this. The deserts, you are up to 110, triple digit teen temperatures there by the end of the week on Friday. Please make sure you are staying hydrated and taking plenty of cooling breaks. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
And here's another look at today's top stories. A popular beach in Del Mar remained closed today after a shark attack over the weekend. The water off 17th Street in Del Mar is closed to the public until tomorrow morning. On Sunday, a man was swimming about 100 yards offshore when he was bitten by a shark in the torso, left arm, and hand. He was taken to the hospital and is expected to survive. Lifeguards advise beachgoers to swim in groups near staffed lifeguard towers and to be aware of their surroundings. Today, thousands of academic workers at at UC San Diego and UC Santa Barbara joined statewide walkouts. UAW 4811 says UC has threatened the health and safety of workers in an effort to discourage them from participating in on-campus Gaza solidarity protests. In a statement, UC San Diego says UAW's strike violates the labor contract's no strike clause. They add the strike is not related to employment at UC. UC Irvine is set to join the rolling strike on Wednesday. Mexico has elected its first female president. Claudia Sheinbaum is a climate scientist and Mexico City's former mayor. Preliminary results show she has won around 59% of the vote. Yesterday, hundreds gathered at the Mexican consulate in Little Italy to vote in the historic election. Some people told KPBS they waited hours but weren't able to vote because there weren't enough ballots.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, Claudia Sheinbaum becomes the first woman to win Mexico's presidential election. What that means for U.S. relations. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on NPR's Morning Edition. Why consumers are thinking twice before buying tickets to see their favorite artists this summer. And the weather is expected to heat up in San Diego County this week. KPBS Midday Edition is talking to climate experts about risks associated with rising temperatures. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.